Welcome to Dog Sports Live. My name is Graham Coffey. It is Friday, July 9th. Many of you on the East Coast are probably about to head home on your commute, so we hope you will join us for a little bit of what we're calling Dog Stats definitions. Dog Stats, of course, is my co-host Josh Ancher coming to you live from FTMF Studios.
I love it.
Yeah, man. So we're going to talk a little bit about success rate, EPA, and explosiveness, which, if you've been with us on this show or going back to our time doing the battle hymnal with Nathan from Chapel Bell Curve, you've probably heard a lot of talk about some of these advanced stats, but especially explosiveness, I think, can be really confusing because we hear people talk about offenses being explosive, but there's also a stat for that. So I'm excited for you to clear some of this stuff up. There's some of it that even though we've been together for well over a year now, I still don't feel like I fully have a grip on. So yeah, man, you want to get into it?
Yeah, I'll get into it, and you just stop me if you got any questions and stuff. But thank you. Yeah, so the idea for this, I've done this before. I wrote a piece for Bulldog Illustrated, sort of talking about these numbers. A lot of the betting guys and certainly the analytics guys are breaking down games using a stat called EPA, and then there's success rate. So I'm giving just one more run through this, and so we can have it up there. You can look at it. So as I talk about this stuff, or if you read about other people, or hear about other people talking about it, you can maybe understand a little better. And again, my whole thing about metrics and analytics, it doesn't take away from the X's and O's or how you've watched the game. It's not sorcery. It's just another way to look at the game and crunch numbers. So without further ado, let's okay. So there are three main stats I'm going to talk about, and we're going to try to knock this out too, because we want to keep these short and sweet sometimes. So three main stats: success rate, EPA, which stands for expected points added, and explosiveness, like Graham was talking about. Those are the three main stats. There are many other ways to filter and tweak and some of the stats defensively, offensively, or per player, per team, but these three are the sort of the building blocks for sort of the analytics of it. All right, so success rate is just basically how a play is deemed successful if it gains 50% of the yards to gain on first down, 70% of the yards to gain on second down, and 100% of the yards to gain on third and fourth down. You'll often hear about this talking in terms of efficiency, offensive efficiency and stuff. So obviously for offense, a high percentage of successful plays or a high success rate is good. And defensively, you want to keep the offense on the other side of the ball from having high success rate on plays. So again, like for instance, my example that I always use for this is a 11. Like for instance, Todd Monken last year talked about his explosives in plays, and we're going to talk about explosives later on. But he described what they want is 12-yard rushes or 20-yard passes, and those are their chunk plays. But analytics guys talk about them a little differently. So, for instance, a 3rd and 17 where you've given up a sack on 2nd and 10, where you've had two unsuccessful plays and you run a draw play for 11 yards or 13 yards, right? You're still 4th and 4. That play is not considered a successful play metrics wise, right? But again, if you look at the stat sheet at padding that running back stats. So again, total yards per carry, all of that still matters, but a success rate is just another way to sort of, peel back a little bit. How am I doing, Graham? You following that?
Yeah, I am. So I guess, when you explain success, I guess when you explain these concepts, I think it's important to mention for folks, why are these three kind of different stats so important? Why do we track them? You have a really good stat in here about success rate and how often the team that wins success rate wins a game. So maybe get into that a little bit.
Yeah. Okay. So Bill Connolly is, I don't know if he's the creator but I think he's the grand poobah of, advanced analytics in football. And he's behind a lot of these numbers. His S&P or his SP plus ratings, or you'll see those a lot, especially preseason when you're talking about returning production, and it stands for sustainable and predictable. And they use this success rate as one of those. And a team that wins a success rate battle is what is the term used, wins a football game 83% of the time. So
that's huge.
That's huge. That's a significant. I mean, again, that's going to tell you, obviously, it doesn't show up technically in the scoreboard, but a team that's going to be more successful and more efficient success rate wise is probably going to be the better team that day and probably going to win the game. But it shows you how good this definition of success is. And I would imagine that, that 17%, there might be some fluke games, but also in that 17% might be, a 42 to 44%, success rate. So, but 83% of teams that win the success rate battle are going to win the football game. So, and if you're looking at these numbers and say you just see a success rate in a preview of a game, you can see like last year, Georgia was a very explosive team, but not high efficiency wise and not a high success rate. Even with JT Daniels, we only got to about 46% success rate on those plays. And if you look at that, that Mississippi State game, you'll see there was a lot of great big plays, but we struggled on a lot of downs and had a very kind of low success rate in those games. Again, same with Stetson Bennett. We had a lot of good plays, a lot of good in the Alabama game, but we weren't sustaining drives. We had a lower success rate than you would want to in that game, and Alabama was both successful percentage-wise, efficiency, and explosiveness, which is why we ended up losing that game. But so these stats can tell you about a game, and especially if they can tell you about a team maybe you don't watch as much. You can look at some of these stats and see, okay, what they do well, and if they're a chunk play offense, or if they are just going to be super efficient passing and running the ball. And also these are broken down by running plays, success rate running, success rate passing. It's just an important stat to think about as you're looking at, and also tracking Georgia Bulldogs. And so we'll see. Where
can people get this data if they're interested in digging more into it?
I think Bill Connolly is going to talk about them a lot on ESPN. And you'll see a lot of Football Outsiders use this stuff. They actually do this in the college and pros. The pro stuff is the actual formulas are a little different, but Football Outsiders use it. A lot of the betting guys that use it, but I use a site called collegefootballdata.com, and they scrape data. I don't know how they do it so fast, but almost instantaneously after a game, they're going to show these in terms of these analytics box scores. So you'll see that, and I'll link to it at some point, but yeah, collegefootballdata.com, at CFB data on Twitter. And those guys talk about a lot. And a lot of guys I follow, that do it, that talk about this stuff. Parker at Stats of War, who's a TCU guy and a statistician. He covers it strictly from analytics and is a great follow on Twitter. And you'll see him a lot on Twitter talking about these stats.
So, if you don't mind, I'm sorry, did you say what constitutes a successful play?
Yes. 50% of the yards. And I'm going to show you a bunch of plays in this Auburn game, which is one of our best offensive games. And these are all 1st and 10s, 5-yard plays, right? So this one's a end around. There's a pass in there. Everyone wants to be successful on first downs, but it shows you that a 50%, only one of these was not converted on either second or third down. So there's only one drive that stalled after you gain 50% of the yards to gain on first down. The rest of them I think a lot of them were scoring drives, but it sets up an offense. You gain 50% and you're successful on first down. That means you're going to be successful on second and third down more times than you're not. And that's what you want. You want to see a 55 to 58% success rate game. Georgia was 61% in the Auburn game. Let me see, let's flip back here. So before we get into that next stat, but yeah, all of those drives were set up by being efficient. And also there was a pass in there's running the ball. It's, analytics people sometimes want to pass the ball because it is a higher, efficiency in terms of yards per play and stuff. But you've talked about this a bunch. Monken is an air raid guy or a spread guy, whatever you want to call it, but he still depends on running the ball successfully. And he's still probably going to hover around, a 50-50, pass run rate.
Right. Yeah. And I mean, looking at the kind of some of the advanced box score from that game, I think it's probably, well, we can get into this a little more with explosiveness and EPA, but a lot of this stuff centers kind of around, field position, right? And
yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Where you perform in the red zone when you do have scoring opportunities.
Right. I mean, one of the stats that Connolly talks about in his 5 factors in football, which is it's actually in SB Nation. It's still up. Yeah. It's from 2014, but the 5 factors is field position and scoring opportunities are another one of those metrics. Maybe I'll do another show on that where we dig into that a little bit, and we can maybe even talk about some of these stats comparing to what we did in 2019 and 2020. All right. So the next stat we're going to talk about, and this one's puts a lot of people off because it's a big number. It's weird. But let me just try to explain it one more time. Expect EPA is, I always describe it. Success rate is binary, yes or no, right? A play success or is it not? It's pretty simple,
Right.
pretty easy to understand. Well, EPA is expected points added, and what the guys that have developed this is they've taken a zillion plays over going back as far as they could, and they've scraped play-by-play data, and they've set up each play on the field, down, distance, and field position, and judged how many times it led to points, right? So, and then so they calculate what that expected play would add to points based on your down, distance, and field position. The EPA is basically taking that number and then subtracting it from the number you get on the next one, which gives you basically a number for each play. So think of it as a grade of each play. Instead of a yes or no binary success rate, this gives you an actual how good was that play. So right. On those first down runs, for example, were 0.09 per EPAs, right? Good runs, but not a big number that contributes to a score if you think of it as a point. But so an explosive play or a bigger play is going to have a higher EPA. But those add up. If you can consistently get those EPA plays, they'll add up and you'll have a high number there. But I'm getting sidetracked here. So it's basically numerical value given to the result on the down, distance, and field position. Every play has an expected points subtracted. Got that? Okay. It's nothing more than a play's impact on a game. That's what you think of it. A higher number is good for offense. A lower number is good for defense. So it's just like how big was that play? And you'll see this broken down by team. You'll see it as an average. You'll see it as a total. But all it is just a number grade for a play. If you like George Pickens' explosive rate which is an EPA. We're going to talk about explosiveness, but I remember it just off the top of my head was 1.7 on his successful plays. That's a big, big number, and that tells you how explosive a player is. But that explosive rating we're going to talk to is based on this EPA number. All right, I know you got to have a question on this.
So, I mean, I guess, yeah, like I think where this gets kind of confusing with the language is it seems like sometimes explosiveness and EPA are the same thing, and sort of like in some of these conversations they're interchangeable. So can you kind of like delineate those for people a little bit?
EPA is every play. It's regardless of success. Explosiveness is just basically the EPA of the successful plays.
So how is explosiveness like measured when we're talking about over the course of a game? Like, is it a percentage of plays that were explosive? Is it how many, like, how is that number calculated?
Okay, it's the same way as EPA is just calculated, right? So suppose you got 60 offensive snaps, right? And the way I look at it in my spreadsheet is every play has an EPA, right? Regardless. Sometimes a bad play or an unsuccessful play often will be a negative value, and a big play will be positive numbers. So the better the play, the bigger the play has impact is on the game, the higher that number is. So, and then that gives you, if you just average that out, right, that gives you per play EPA. But the explosiveness is just the successful plays based on that success rate formula we started with. So if you just take out those 5-yard runs, those were all successful plays, but they were not, they were all 5 yards, barely successful. They're right on that number. That's why I chose those. There's 5-yard plays, which is what the bare minimum to be successful on first down. And those EPAs would it's actually 0.89. But for that game, Georgia was really good on offensive first downs. For the game, their average EPA was 0.179. That's all the plays on first down. My spreadsheet allows me to filter out those plays. Again, it shows you like you break this down, you can see whether a team is good on first downs or second downs or third downs. Just the more you filter out and talk about it and look about it.
So I mean, you're talking about like 0.89 in one of these, and then I think you said 1.79 or something on another. Like, what's a good EPA? Like, what is a median EPA? Like, where if I just want to go look at EPA and I want to know, is this a high EPA or a low EPA? Like, what is there a tipping point there that you would kind of?
Yeah, I think, like, for instance, Zamir White's EPA rushing the ball was like 1.1. It's like 1.111, right? Najee Harris was 0.233 on his plays. So yeah, big difference. I mean, Zamir was running between tackles. It's hard. I mean, but Najee Harris was, he was getting Heisman votes. I mean, that's the difference right there. And then I'm going to leave the explosiveness up because this is where we're headed to. So, yeah, I mean, I think as a total offense, you want to be probably, 0.3% or 0.3 EPA, somewhere in there. I mean, that's going to be an elite offense. A low-level offense could be 0.1. And again, that's total offense for the entire season or entire game. So, I mean, we want to be up in that 0.3 where – so, obviously, a 5-yard run on first down is great, but you still want to be you want to have some bigger plays and stuff like that. And obviously, as you get closer to the end zone, those plays, because it's based on field position, the ones closer to the end zone are more valuable. So,
Right.
So it's not just, again, like depending on where you are on the field, that's the tricky part is it's based, there's a zillion, I don't know what the number would be.
So a 12-yard pass on your own 30 is going to be worth way less than a 12-yard pass on your opponent's 30 because all of a sudden it's put you in the red zone.
Exactly right. A 12-yard pass is going to be pretty valuable no matter what. Again, there's also, if you think about it, the 40s, in between the 40s are big numbers. So when your offense crosses into past your 40, the numbers increase a good bit. And then when you cross into the opponent's 40, getting closer to the red zone, they start to add up a bunch. So yeah, a 5-yard run on 1st and 5 at your 40 is going to be less valuable than a 5-yard run on first and goal at the 12 or first and goal at the 9. So yeah,
so to simplify this a little bit, like, would you think is it fair for me to say that this takes situational football into account really well in terms of if a guy throws for 350 yards, but all of them occur, he's getting the ball on his 10-yard line every time, and they're punting it, at the other opponent's 45 because they're Iowa and they punt on the opponent's 45 all the time.
Yeah.
Like, his EPA is going to be really low because, like, even though he's racked up all this yardage, he really hasn't added any expected points.
Exactly. And also if you have, negative EPAs, like if you're not good, if you rack up all yours on your side of the ball and you get, you can't convert in the red zone and scoring opportunities, those become negative plays really quickly and will, decrease your EPA. So absolutely. It does, where your plays are factors into the EPA for sure.
Did you already show that clip from the Auburn game with Kyrus Jackson? Okay. Yeah, because I think that's a really good example. Just, like you have a play that all of a sudden is taking you from
here we are inside
your own territory to what, they're 10 or so?
So it was I'm not sure what that was, 39-yard pass.
39 yard, yeah.
Right. So this lone play, if you filtered out this play, that's a 3.67 EPA, right? So that's how you get, your high, we talked about those first down runs being low, but that's how you get, explosive. That's an explosive play that adds EPA, that increases your EPA average. Yeah, all of those things. And that's why it's important to be, exactly. This takes you out of your into the field into the opponent's scoring zone. So that's why that play is that play right there is almost worth a field goal.
Right. Well, yeah, exactly. It's 3.0, right? So,
right.
I mean,
Exactly.
It is worth a field goal in essence. I mean, you've gone, once you're inside the 15, which I think is around where that play ended, like you're in automatic field goal range pretty much if for a college kicker.
Right. And that play
makes great sense.
That play, I mean, a 10-yard rush will always be worth a 10-yard TD will always be worth a lot of points, but that rush is already factored in that you're almost a chip shot in a field goal. So Zamir White's not going to get 6 points EPA on that because you've already factored in that field goal is almost a given. So it's,
like
that's why it's important.
75-yard run against Florida, would that be a 6-point EPA play?
Yeah, that was yeah, exactly. It was over 6 for sure. Probably close to 7. Yeah. If you'll remind me, I'll tweet that and put it in the tweeter thread. That's listen to the tweeter thread. Okay. So now we've talked about explosiveness. Everyone wants to know about explosiveness. And the one thing talking about Todd Monken earlier, what he described as explosive plays were 20-yard passes, 12-yard runs, which is fine. It's just totally different. It's a percentage of plays. They're tracking their team. And I think it's important to understand that matters to them because they're really looking at one team. But if you're looking at all of football or all of, FBS football, you got to be a little more, you got to look at it a little differently and stuff. So analytics guys look at the EPA and success rate, right? We've talked about those. And it's just the how good are your good plays, and that's your explosiveness rating. It's the same numerical value as EPA, but it factors out your bad plays. And that seems cheesy, but that's what it is. It's just how good are your good plays. So, for instance, if you factored out just the successful plays for George Pickens, it was like 1.7 EPA, which is huge. It's very. I mean, he's one of the most explosive players and not on the Alabama team last year. So, and if you looked at Georgia's explosiveness rating last year, we were actually the most explosive team, but that tells you how good our good plays were. And that's what, kind of like what everybody said. Blue Tarsi said it. You said it. Everybody on Twitter said the plays were there, that Monken schemed us open. And when they were executed, we were awesome. But the problem was they weren't executed. So that number right there tells you that, we're not a dink and dunk offense. We're not a, pound the rock, man, what do they call it? Man football or whatever. It's like we were explosive on offense. We just weren't successfully on enough plays. We need to be more efficient with those successful plays.
So would it be fair to say last year, Georgia's offense, especially under Stetson Bennett and Mathis when he was playing, everything was kind of either a strikeout or a home run, and we need an offense that can hit more doubles to go with some of those home runs? Just
exactly. I mean, of
course,
course
the ball.
Right. And you got to execute and you got to be efficient. Efficiency is a term that's used a lot. And that's where, your explosiveness, you can say, oh, well, Georgia was more explosive than Florida and Alabama. We were, but they had a lot more successful plays. And so that explosiveness rating may go down a little bit, but they were close to us explosiveness and a lot more. We were at 40% for the season, I believe, or 42%, and they were close over 50% successful on their plays. So that's where the elite offenses live. They would live at a 1.6 EPA explosiveness rating and 50+% success rate. So and here's an interesting thing. I'm going to try to do this and look at it at the same time. So here's a first down run. A first down pass for, it was a negative EPA. It's not successful, 4-yard play. And okay, so we're 2nd and 6, which is not bad, but still, this is not a successful play for Georgia's offense, right? 2-yard, -1 yard rush. I think he actually got by the line of scrimmage. So again, not a successful play. But on this third down play, it's a completion for 9 yards. So for that series, if you just think of it, it's a 33% success rate. And that last play was a 0.17 EPA, which is good for an average. But if you average it over 3 plays, you see that it's going to diminish quite a bit. So this is not how you're going to be efficient on offense for Georgia. You need to be not on third down and long. You need to not depend on big explosive plays every time you need them. You need them to come on schedule, and and you want to increase that percentage of successful plays.
Well, and I think we talked about that a good bit, but if you watched the Mississippi State or Cincinnati games for Georgia last year, right? What did we see? We saw for at least a half to 2/3 of the game, Georgia run the ball up the middle into a stacked box on 1st and 2nd down for a yard or two, and then on 3rd down, Daniels would hit a nice pass and move the chains, but if Georgia can kind of get out of some of that, I guess a little more scripted routine of run, pass and mix things up a little bit and take some of those shots on earlier downs, you're saying that, that success rate can rise and maybe that explosiveness goes down a little bit, but the overall health of the offense is way better.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, it's about efficiency. You want to have those big plays, but you want to be on schedule. So you want to have big plays, a good success rate and a high explosiveness rating. So you look at a Kentucky offense that probably had a similar success rate as Georgia, but a very low explosiveness rating again because they just couldn't move the ball through the air. All right,
gotcha.
let me see if I can show this here. All right, that's we've already looked at that. Here's some of the successful plays for Georgia right here. This is late in the game here, but this is clearly a huge play. A lot of analytics guys would actually factor this out because it's actually in garbage time and stuff. But it's early enough in the 4th quarter; it's not over yet. It's a 49-yard rush. This was our again, if you look at the field position inside our zone and took it into their scoring zone. So this was actually one of our most explosive plays EPA wise. And here's another one. Here's again, we're at our 20, and it's one of the, we've showed this, I'll play a bunch in the off season, but one more time doesn't hurt. But it's interesting. These are the two most explosive plays. Again, it's a huge play down the sideline into their scoring zone. You actually see the field goal line right there, field goal range line, right? So, but the next two plays after this are pretty interesting. It's a 20-yard completion in the Peach Bowl on 4th and 5. And then a 3rd and 10 completion on 3rd down in the Arkansas game. So here we are. We're inside their scoring zone. It's 4th and 5. So that's factoring in down and distance. And this keeps the drive alive. It puts us in scoring range. And that play was our 3rd most successful non-scoring play. I should mention that. You know, our scoring plays are built in because big bombs like that. But these 4 plays were the highest EPA for our non-scoring plays. Yeah. So what is it? 23-yard completion on 4th and 5. That's huge. You know, we moved, and then this one is another one, 3rd and 10. You know, barely outside our 40, and we complete it for a conversion right there. It keeps the drive alive. And this play right here is our 4th most successful play EPA wise for the season on the non-scoring plays, and noteworthy that it's Matt Landers. But so I mean, so it kind of goes back to your point. These EPA plays, which factor into explosiveness, take down and distance and field position. They don't take in score. They score differential. They don't take in time in the game, but you can see that.
Unless it's garbage time, right? Then it gets filtered out.
It does get – I'm not sure if that was garbage time in the Missouri game. It's probably right on the edge. And there's 10 minutes left in the game. So, I mean, it was garbage time for us. I mean, Dejon Edwards is in.
So Stetson, yeah.
Yeah. But, you know, for me, I keep it all in there. I think every play is important when we're looking as a Georgia fan on where – you know, I mean, yeah, garbage time is important, but I factor it all just frankly because it's really hard to factor out garbage time on my Excel spreadsheet.
Sure, yeah.
So
no, it's understandable. Yeah, I mean, I guess so. You know, I think this is a good primer, and I want to stress, you know, one thing that I love about working with you on the show and your knowledge with this advanced statistics stuff is a lot of times I will come to you or we'll talk about a show we want to do and we'll start making an outline and I'll have a theory about the Georgia offense. Let's say it's, you know, well, when things go well, they go really well, but oftentimes the downfield accuracy isn't there. And so we're not hitting these big plays as much as we should be when guys are open. And you can find a stat to back up that theory, you know? And so that's what I think is really unique about kind of the setup that we have here is I'm probably more somebody that watches the game and I go and try to find statistics that, you know, back up what I think I have seen. And sometimes I'll be right. And sometimes I'll find statistics that say I'm wrong. But, you know, you, I think, kind of approach it from the opposite direction of here are the statistics. So, you know, let me see if that has laid out true on the field. And obviously it has because the statistics are that way. But I think this is a wonderful asset for us to have kind of going into the next season is this is all stuff that makes you a smarter football fan, right? Yeah. And if you want to gamble on college football, which a lot of you want to do and which I want to do,
we're going to be using these to help.
Yeah, totally. Yeah. And this is, you know, I mean, some like success rate, whoever wins the success rate battle is going to win the game 86% of the time. You will take those odds any day. So, you know, I think
it's just one more, it's another facet to look at the game. And you don't have to crunch the numbers. You just have to know what they are. And I like doing it a lot. And again, yeah, it's absolutely right. You look at something differently and you bring the analysis on the field and I can, you know, talk about the statistics. I can tell you right now by just, you know, I'm not a statistician. I just literally compile these. I'm pretty good at organizing them and sharing them with you guys, which is what I like to do. But I can tell you, like, for instance, one guy, we're going to do a show about it a little later, some of the players that we're going to be facing this year that are explosive that you may not. Like, if you filter out returning players, Treylon Burks is one of the best wide receivers, and he's not getting a lot of pub. And he, you know, his numbers are good. I mean, they're just like a really good wide receiver. I think he's 800 yards receiving. But if you look at if you take a level deeper and use some of these stats, you can see that explosiveness wise, using these numbers we talked about, show you that he's one of the most explosive returning players in the SEC. And you probably hadn't heard of him, and I hadn't heard of him. But as I was scraping these numbers and crunching it out, he popped up because. So there's a little tease for another show. But yeah, you can, if you see these numbers and now you hopefully you understand a little better what they are and what they mean, and maybe it'll give you some insight to know what's coming down from the opposing team, or how to bet them, as we like to say.
Totally. So I guess before I let we wrap up here. Is there a kind of benchmark with some of these metrics that if you're a Georgia fan, you should be looking out for during the season to say, like, this is where past college football playoff or national title teams have been in relation to some of this stuff?
We didn't talk about it here, but I'll talk about it a bunch. But the number we want to get to is 2.0 yards per play. Net yards per play. That is I think becoming a bare minimum to be an elite college team. And that, again, that's offense and defense. But the number that instantly that we want to see right off the bat in that Clemson game especially is a higher success rate. We were exciting last year at the end of the year under JT Daniels. We had moments and flashes where we were exciting under the other quarterbacks, especially in that Auburn game. But that Auburn game, everyone remembers how good we were. We were 61% successful on offense that game. That's where we want to be. We want more of those games, and not, as exciting as we were about JT Daniels coming out in the Mississippi State game. It was a tight game. And that's because our offense was only successful 40 or 39% of the time. So right off the bat, look for a higher success rate on Georgia's offense, more plays, more efficiency, and all those other things will happen by themselves. But if you see, you can still win a game with a lower success rate. But again, we want to see a 50% success rate on Georgia's offense.
And so that Auburn game, right? Like if you just remember it, like, why do we have a high success rate? Because it felt like every single first down, we handed the ball to Zamir or James Cook, and they got 6, 7, 8 yards. And, if you watch much football, you'll often hear on Saturdays or Sundays or Friday nights, an offensive coordinator's favorite down is 2nd and 2 or 2nd and 3, because you can call anything you want and you still have short yardage on 3rd down to pick it up. And so it's just the situational football, right? That we keep kind of using that term, but opening the playbook up and not being under the gun of having to convert and being so far behind the chains at all times.
Yeah, a lot of football guys that don't talk about success rate will talk about staying on schedule, and that's really honestly a very, very similar thing. It's like a successful play is going to be on schedule, an unsuccessful play puts you behind the chains. It's just different ways to look at it.
Awesome. You got anything else for us before we wrap up?
No, man. That was a little. I hope you guys got something out of it. We anticipated it to be shorter, but I yammered on for 30 minutes. So I appreciate it, and stay tuned. We'll do some more of this. Follow Graham on Twitter at Dog Out West. I'm at Dog_stats. I love talking this stuff. If you're writing or dude, if you got a question, DM me.
Hit Josh up.
I love doing this. Exactly. I've got a whole bunch of stuff, and it's there to share it. Even if you're not a Georgia fan, I track the SEC pretty heavily and can certainly dig up any non-SEC stuff for you too. So thanks for checking us out, and we'll do some more of this.
Awesome. Go Dogs. Yeah, thanks for your time. Follow him at Dog_stats. Follow me at Dog Out West. Follow the show at DogSports_live on Twitter. We just hit 400 followers. And go follow our man, Christopher Smith at CP Smith DB. He is the official ambassador of Dog Sports Live, and we are excited to be partnered with him.
All right. Go Dogs.